That's cool, If you can get ready to pull too, we'll see if we can get this thing out.
We are just holding our breath so that you will finish the case.
There it is. America's #1 killer right there before your eyes.
So that's all coming from the fat, the grease, the protein, bad diet, junk food, pastries. We enjoy these foods, but it's leaving a deadly results behind. Not all of these conditions are manifesting itself in a heart attack or stroke. Do you know that if a person is having a problem with their kidneys, their lungs, sexual organs, eyesight, all of these are positive signs that there is some compromise with plaque buildup in the body. When a man suffers from impotence, there's nothing but plaque. We have respiratory problems, kidney problems. All of these are signs that there are plaque in the body, that the body's not getting the proper amount of oxygen. We've got to find out how to reduce this plaque in the system, because a stroke is a medical emergency. And anyone that's having a stroke, they need to get proper attention. Stroke happens when blood flow to the brain stops. Because it's such a small window of time, it is more dangerous than cancer, MS, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson. You only have a few minutes by which your brain cells die. This is why I'm emphasizing that if somebody has a stroke, get some attention quick, because you losing brain cells too fast. Within minutes, brain cells begin to die. The most common is ischemic stroke. It's caused by a blood clot that block or plug blood vessels to the brain. There are other kinds, such as hemorrhagic stroke. It's caused by blood vessels that break and bleed in the brain. There are many strokes, small strokes. Anytime you have a stroke, recognize some of these signs like sudden numbness, weakness of the face and legs, arms, and other, the whole one side of the body can be affected. Sudden confusion, trouble speaking, understanding speech, trouble seeing, trouble walking, dizziness, loss of balance, severe headaches. Anytime you're having problems like this, you really need to make proper recognition and try to get some help. There are things that we can do as the recovery process, and those are herbs such as onions, which is a blood thinner, bilberry is another one, feverfew is another beautiful help break down blood clots. Garlic is a blood thinner, ginger also, ginkgo increase oxygen to the brain, curcumin, vitamin E can also destroy blood clots, and white willow bark, which is very good. And then I give you the formula down here, which you can mix this up as a tea and take that. One of the main components is vitamin E. Vitamin E can actually hold off a stroke if you know how much to take. But remember, if you take vitamin E, you've got to get that pressure down out of a dangerous level. Then you can go up to 600 IUs 2 to 3 times a day. That's usually be enough to prevent blood clots from developing. Anytime there is a lot of pressure from blockage in the arteries, you're going to have to use that safety valve to release that pressure, and that is intestinal cleansing. It's like a safety valve, a vent to let the pressure off. Give them a good bowel cleanser, give them a good enema. That in itself can reduce a lot of pressure. To head off a recurrence of a stroke, we need to give a liver flush. Flush them out with olive oil and lemon juice. Blood pressure can be a contributing factor in the death rate from cardiovascular disease. Among the major racial groups, white people have the highest death rate from cardiovascular disease. It accounts for about 42.5% in white women and 38.6% with white men. But African Americans are not far behind, with 40.8% of African American women and 33.8% of African American men die from cardiovascular problems. The causes of most The cause of most cases of high blood pressure is not known, but doctors note that the disease is specially detected and usually controllable. They may not know it, but God's people know that it's our dietary and our lifestyle that's causing this. Because if we eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, high fiber, get plenty of water, reduce our sodium, we'll have less problem with that. But to do that, we're gonna eliminate all our processed and junk food, drinking alcohol, making sure we eat food high in potassium can be a preventative measure. Peripheral artery disease not only can affect the brain, it can affect your legs and feet area. Can cause discomfort or pain when walking. The pain can occur in your hip, buttock, thighs, knees, chin, and upper feet. This, when you start experiencing pain in that area and it's consistent, you may have peripheral artery disease and don't know it. Some people can have it from varicose veins, phlebitis, and they don't recognize it until it's become so uncomfortable. And then they go to the doctor and they diagnose them with peripheral leg disease. Leg artery disease is considered a type of peripheral artery disease because it affects the arteries and blood vessels that carry blood away from your heart. So as your blood leaves your heart, it goes through the rest of your body. If there's some obstructions in your legs, that could hinder blood from going back to the heart. That can make your heart work harder to bring blood up from the lower extremities back to the heart. This overworking of the heart can cause congested heart failure. And that's why I said, even though you may not have any blockage in the heart, you could have blockage in your lower extremities that is putting a rebound effect on your heart or your brain.
Is that how people get blood clots in the leg?
That is. That is so true. So eating too much fat can increase your risk for a number of health problems. For starters, eating a lot of fat can make you fat. Fat contains 9 calories per gram. This means fat packs more than twice as many calories as carbohydrates and protein. So when we eat fat, we are taking in too many calories. That's why you're going to gain weight and your artery is going to suffer the effects of this. Too much of a certain type of fat can lead to other health problems. A diet rich in saturated fat is particularly dangerous because it can rise your cholesterol and triglyceride level. Cayenne pepper is not only good for circulatory problems, it is also very good for prostate problems and increased circulation. Be very conscious of trans fats. Trans fats, especially in the form of food that is with a lot of sugar and fat, like your donuts and your pastries and your cookies, and those are high in trans fats. The combination of fat and sugar is more deadly than any type of poison you can put in your system. And that's where a lot of people will end up with cardiovascular problems. Sometimes when you have cardiovascular problems, it can affect your memory. And people say, well, they come down with Alzheimer's. It may not be that Alzheimer's is the main reason. It means that the brain cells have been deprived of oxygen so long that brain cells are dying. So by the time doctors look at it, so many brain cells have died that they think you have dementia or Alzheimer's. But the foundation of those problems was depriving those brain cells of oxygen. And if we would simply take care of these things much earlier, then we have less to worry about. Other factors that increase your chance of developing disease include smoking, diabetes. Now, diabetes is particularly dangerous because it's a compound problem. First of all, the diabetic arteries are 10 years older than themselves. They may be 50 years old, but they're diabetic, they're 60 years old. So that means you're dying 10 years faster than you should. If you got high blood pressure with that, it's a compound problem. So you're putting too much stress on your arteries. Let's look at some things as we start bringing it to a close. If you notice fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath by going up a flight of steps, chest pain, lower back pain, erectile dysfunction, any of these, numbness, coldness, any particular conscious. When you start noticing these things, then you can use some of the preventive measures. You don't have a stroke yet, but you are heading down that road. This is where we can do a lot of things to reverse it. Lifestyle change is the main thing that we can reverse it before we have a problem. Doctors will give you medication to try to deal with your problem, but I'm going to give you one particular one doing the preventative and restorative process is sea buckthorn oil. That is fantastic. Research have tested the effect of sea buckthorn oil on a group of males, particularly at risk of developing blood clots, and found that sea buckthorn oil especially prevent platelet agitation, therefore reduce the risk of clotting. So remember when I said that blood vessel bursts, the platelets come in and try to seal it off, and it makes the clot bigger. Well, sea buckthorn bark prevent the platelets from sealing it off to the point of making the clot bigger. And so that's what makes it so effective. Doctors give you aspirin as a blood thinner that's supposed to do the same thing. That's why they give it to you. It's a natural blood thinner. But it can also cause gastric irritation, stomach ulcers, and many other problems, a lot of adverse side effects. But sea buckthorn bark is more effective than aspirin without any side effects at all. Remember, it's better to prevent disease than to cure it by following pure air, sunshine, rest, exercise, proper diet, use of water, trust in divine power. These are the foundation. These are the 10 commandments of health. But around those 10 commandments, there are many statutes and judgments that go along with that. But unless we're following that out, those 10 commandments, then we're not going to do well at all. Some of the other things you can do is better than aspirin. Laboratory studies on animals, a Danish researcher declared that ginger is a much better at blocking blood clot than either garlic or onion. Ginger works better than those two in preventing blood cells from making clots. So ginger is that good, and garlic is okay, and onion is pretty good. Instead of using it as a single element of ginger, why not make a compound of ginger, garlic, and onion? Now that means we'll get all the strength of garlic, onion, and ginger rolled up together, which would be a wonderful process to do if you know you have thick blood, prone to develop blood clot. Do that and drink plenty of water, and that should give you good protection. A beautiful treatment is dew walking. It's an old treatment that a lot of people have gotten away from, but it is such a wonderful process, especially if you got leg artery disease. What can I do to stay healthy? Barefoot. Walking barefooted on wet grass. Recommended as a year-round activity, and believe it by advocates to challenge the body's vital energies toward the heart. In other words, you take your shoes off, you go outside when the sun is just coming up, when the dew is on the grass. Pray that you get some clean grass. And you walk in the grass in the dew. When you finish walking in the grass in the dew, what you do is you walk on the pavement, rocks, and you'll feel electricity, static electricity run up and down your legs. Like you got a little weak electrical voltage. And it just tingling in your feet. And what that do, that would cause your arteries to dilate. So that stagnated blood from varicose vein phlebitis, it'll cause it to dilate, pushing that blood up. So moving that old blood out the way where new blood will come in. Try dew walking. It's a beautiful treatment. Another one is bilberry. Bilberry is antifungal, anti-yeast, antibacterial. It also prevents blood clotting. It's a vasodilator, it's anti-inflammatory. It improves vision because it increases circulation. Another one is broom. Recent scientific finding has uncovered possible effect on arrhythmia, regular heartbeat. So if you got your regular heartbeat, try broom for that. And and there it's just telling you the doses. You're using 2 teaspoons of the plant in a cup of water. Use tinctures 40 drops 3 times a day. Capsules 3 capsules 3 times a day of broom. Hawthornberry is an old warrior that has been used for many years, and there's no evidence of any adverse side effects. It helps with congestive heart failure. And one in particular is a garlic enema. And doing an enema, make sure that you fill your enema bag up with your proper solution, whether you're doing a coffee enema, or herb enema, or water enema. Then make sure that your tip and your cutoff valve is cut off so the solution won't run out before you insert it. Then just before you insert the tip into the rectum, cut the inflow valve on and let the water run free, taking any excess air that's in the tube out before you insert it in the rectum. Then cut the tip off, get you a good lubricant, and lubricate the tip real well before inserting it. And then insert the tip real slow into the rectum. Now this is so important because now if a person's pressure is real high, they got a headache, it still may be in the preventative method. Get them a garlic enema that could bring their pressure down. It may not bring it down to a normal level. You had to repeat that 4, 5, or 6 times while you're seeking other help. But every time you do a garlic retention enema, you're going to drop the pressure down a little more. At the same token, put a cold compress on the head, a hot foot bath, and you should bring that pressure down so it will lessen the pressure on those arteries that's ready to burst.
How many garlic are you using?
At least 1 bulb of garlic. Chop it up, put it in a blender, fill the blender up with water, strain it, and give a person about a 4 to 6 ounce retention garlic enema. That should be enough. But like I said, you may have to do it 4 or 5 times or more. Because if your pressure is 200 over 150, it may only drop it 10 or 15 points at a time. So you may have to keep on doing it until you get it down to a safe level. Exercise regular. This is all preventative and recovery. It's so important. And remembering that you must stop eating saturated fats, fried hydrogenated vegetable fats such as coconut, which is oil, which is 88% saturated fat, vegetable fat, animal fat, homogenized milk, butter, eggs, cheese. All these are saturated with fats. You've got to quit it. And it's hard for people that eat a certain ethnic way to stop because we're used to eating a certain way.
So the coconut oil, is that has a lot of saturated fat?
It chemically, the coconut oil chemically say it's saturated. But we know that no plant food is saturated. But because chemically it says saturated, that means the only way we can eat it is extra cold press. If we cook with it, or any other form of it, it's going to have the same effect as saturated fat. So
you've been putting it on it after you cook food.
As long as you don't put it on extreme heat, coconut oil, even though chemically it says saturated, if you don't cook with it on a high heat, it will not have a saturated effect in the system. And so there's no plant food that's saturated but coconut. But if you eat it in its natural state, without frying with it, then you will not get the effect of saturated. This is one of the most controversial food it is. Eliminate all proteins such as chicken, fish, beef, vegetarian meat, fried food, sodas. One big problem with especially vegetarians, they eat a lot of veggie meats, which I believe is worse than animal in a large perspective. This commercial bought veggie meat, they replace blood with salt. The salt gives it its taste. blood give the animal taste. They both are deadly. So if you're gonna make veggie meat, make sure it's low in sodium. And if you're gonna eat processed, make sure you don't eat it too much. But I've seen people buy veggie meat and then add salt to it. That is asking for trouble. It's no better than eating animal meat. You're not doing yourself any favor at all. So, like I said, there's a number of things, I went over these, so I won't have to go over this. And I will talk about the eggplant tea, because this is really important for somebody with high blood pressure. This is in the recovery and preventive measure. This won't stop a person if already had a stroke, in the process of having a stroke. This will stop a person from having a stroke because it's in the preventative and recovery phase. Cut up 1 whole eggplant, place in 2 quarts of spring water, chop up 5 garlic bulbs, 4 teaspoons of golden seal, let it set overnight, place in the refrigerator for 3 days, drink 1 ounce 6 times daily. During this process, you must stop eating all salt during the process of drinking this. And it will bring your blood pressure down. In some cases, it can lower your blood pressure too low. So you have to monitor it. As your blood pressure drops, you may have to cut back on eggplant tea so your pressure won't drop too low. Go on a good liver flush for about 3 days. That's drinking olive oil and lemon juice. Once again, a bowel cleanser, taking 1 tablespoon of lecithin, 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C twice a day. Drink 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. Drink 1 pint of vegetable juice a day. Pint of carrot juice. Eat about 85 to 100% raw diet. And get plenty of walking exercise. And then my final slide is, this is the formula to help you reduce blood pressure. And that is where we take 4 scolin. We mix that 3 ounces of that. Vitamin C, 10,000 milligrams. B6, 600 milligram powder. Vitamin D3, which is niacin, 5,000 milligrams in the powder form. Magnesium, 2,000 milligrams. Selenium, 800 milligrams. Potassium, 1,000 milligrams. Garlic, 3 ounce powder. Hawthorn berry, 3 ounce powder. L-taurine, 200 milligrams. Cayenne pepper, 1 ounce powder. CoQ10, 2,000 milligrams. Butcher's broom, 2 ounces. Ginger, 3 ounces. Onion, 2 ounces. Mix all this together. Take 1 teaspoon in water 3 times a day. This is a very effective natural blood formula to help you reduce your blood pressure. Do those things, and remember, none of this will work without knowing that the power is not in the staff. The staff is only the instrument in the hands of Christ, and that He uses that staff for His glory and His honor, and then God can bless you. Any questions or thoughts before we close?
You know, thinking of what you're saying about bed, that if you have a poor circulation on the legs,
Mhm.
bring more pressure on the heart.
It does.
I think of my condition.
Well, it is. Anytime you have problems, even if you have tight shoes or corns, it's going to put pressure on your heart, because anything, you have on tight socks that cut off the circulation in your blood, that's going to make your heart work harder to pull blood back up. So your blood leave the heart, go all the way down to your feet. Now that blood got to come back to the heart. So now the heart got to pull really hard along with the capillaries, pull it back to the heart. The more it works, the more stress you put on the heart. And that's why I say you've got to relieve any obstruction. You have to do that. In your particular case, your situation is not in your veins. You have a topical infection. Let's see, it's right on the skin level. It's not in your veins or arteries. If it was in your veins and arteries, you would have knots, like varicose veins or phlebitis. Then you would have stress on your heart. In your case, you have a staph infection, MRSA infection, which is topical. It's just right up under the skin. I don't perceive that you have a problem with your veins or arteries. I don't. Unless you got problem with your high blood pressure. You don't. Okay, no problem with that. So I doubt you got any problem. Yours is topical. It's just right under the layers of the skin where the bacteria get right up under the layer. It's living right under the layer of your skin. And that's where it is. And so we got to get in there and kill it. And that's why they're using the DMSO to penetrate down below the skin membrane level. And that's why we're using a lot of other sprays and the essential oils, and we're using now motor oil. We want to penetrate down under the layer of the skin to draw that infection out. It's going to take a little time. It's already working.
Already working.
Yes.
It's a lot of even that first treatment of always the day.
Yeah, you remember the other sister that was in Fiji? They had all the spots over her body. In less than a week, they was almost all gone. That motor oil is something with that. Okay, if there's no other question. I held a little longer because we did Sabbath school and divine worship together. So, excuse me for that. I wanted to get this subject out because so many people having problems with strokes and high blood pressure. So if you recorded that, we're gonna try to put that up and so that somebody can benefit from it.
I like that part where they say vegetarian meat.
Yeah.
Because most of us, even though we don't eat meat, we love original.
Right. Okay. Let us have a word.
Since you had brought them together, we'll let Stanley go and do his special music.
Okay. Stanley, you got some special needs?
Yeah, I can do that.